and we are going to get started, and hopefully have a couple more folks join us. And if not, they can watch it later. So I'm going to turn this over to the man, Mr. Kamaal Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Rickle. Much appreciation. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Kamaal Martin, running for mayor in the lovely little city of Lemon Grove, and welcome to our third installment of our virtual town hall series. Today, we wanted to have a little bit of a conversation around a really important topic, economic development, and what that means for us, a little bit about maybe how we got into the predicament that we're in. And my hope and desire for this evening was, to keep this as interactive as we possibly can. And for those of you who've joined us before, we do have quite a bit of engagement and interaction. We don't have massive groups that we're working with, so it's small enough where everybody kind of knows everybody. I had a couple of slides that I wanted to share a screen with you folks. I'm going to bring those up shortly. But before we launch into, like the meat of the piece, I just wanted to share just a little bit more kind of on the personal side so folks can kind of get to know me a little bit better. Forgive me if people have heard some of these stories before, but I just wanted to kind of share an experience that I had earlier this afternoon with the Lemon Grove resident, who kind of got led to me through social media. Politicians, elected officials typically don't have the reputation for being very accessible. And I put my personal cell phone number on, all of my campaign stuff because I want to talk to people. And Lemon Grove is small enough where you can actually talk to everybody. This isn't San Diego, it's not Chula Vista or Oceanside. And to the extent possible, I want to put as human a face on, city government as we possibly can. And I want to do everything in my power to dispel the myth that, elected officials are like special, or that they should be put on a pedestal, or that the work they do is mysterious in some way. I want to be a part of, having as much transparency as we possibly can. And, this young woman reached out and, she had a couple of questions that we started kind of going back and forth over text. And the things she was asking, text really didn't do it justice in terms of, providing some context and the level of detail that I think her questions really, really warranted. So I was like, hey, can I call you back, in a little bit later after I finish this other call? And, we did, and we talked, and I shared with her, well, she grew up in a small town, and she was like, I really love the tight-knit community, and, everybody knows everybody. And I told her a story about, growing up in Hawaii and shooting rocks at cars with a slingshot. And by the time I got home in the pre-internet era, my mom already knew everything that I had done and was on me. And I attribute that to growing up in a place where people have the opportunity to get to know one another. People care, people look out for you, your neighbors look out for you. The people at the post office, the people at the grocery store, the people at the dry cleaner, or, whatever the case may be. But I also shared with her, I've had some other experiences, and it hasn't always been roses for me out here in San Diego. Well, San Diego, county is the home that I've made for myself. And, Lemon Grove is the city that I chose to raise my family in. Like many of you all, I've fallen on hard times and, have had a lot of challenges that I've had to overcome. So we just had the chance to kind of talk about some of that. And I think the part that really kind of struck her was, she was talking about how she was a single mom. And, when she got divorced, it was really tough, and X, Y, and Z. And I've been married for about 10 years. I have two daughters. One's 15, the other one's 13. And I've been divorced from their mother for, going on 6 years now. And after that divorce, it was kind of rough. My credit was busted. I was still working full time, wearing a suit to go to a job, but I was sleeping in my car, showering at the gym. The first place that I could afford to live wasn't really meant for, human habitation. I was living upstairs above an auto body shop. Didn't have a kitchen. I used to have to wash my dishes in the bathroom. My kids were embarrassed to come visit me. Definitely didn't want to tell anybody like where we lived. And I was like, I know this is rough for y'all, but Dad has a plan, and I'm putting some things in motion. And if you watch and see, we'll get out of this situation. And it wasn't immediate. The next step up from the mechanic shop was a converted garage where, at least I had a full kitchen. and I didn't have to wash my pots and pans in the shower anymore, but I was sleeping on the floor next to my kids. I didn't have a bed. They didn't really have a bed, you know. Still, I got a full-time job, you know, making important decisions and contributing to the community. But between student loans and child support and rent and, you know, trying to do the right thing by everybody else in my life, like, it was crushing, you know. Made too much money to get help or support from anywhere, but not enough to really provide the standard of living that I wanted my kids to have. You know, we were in that situation for about 6 months, and, you know, told them then, Daddy's got a plan, we'll get through this. And, you know, the step above that, from auto body shop to sleeping on the floor in a garage, I was able to get a 1-bedroom apartment where, boom, my kids got a bedroom, they got a bunk bed, they got a door, and I got a pull-out couch. So I'm feeling like a king now. And we kept being patient, working hard, being thankful for all the things that we did have, because I knew what it was like to not even have the pull-out couch. And you know, the step beyond that was this lovely apartment over by the Lemon, where I find myself today. So many other things have happened in that amount of time. You know, I met another, you know, fantastic person who came into my life. You know, my partner, she's moved in with me and my daughters. We're looking to buy something out here in Lemon Grove, where we plan on becoming first-time homeowners, you know, in the next 3 to 4 months. So I just wanted to add just kind of a human element to that piece and frame some of our discussion about economic development today, because I think economic development exists on a number of different levels, and it's not just what business are you attracting to the city or what's your sales tax. At the end of the day, we're all human beings and people who have needs. And how can we as a city first take a look at, you know, the greatest asset we have, which is, you know, our human capital, and address those pieces, address those elements. You know, are people's basic needs being met? What opportunities are we providing for education, for skills acquisition, for job training, for workforce development? You know, I understand we can't be everything to everybody, and we can't do all things for all people. But the extent to which that we can, you know, really try and wrap our arms around people and at least do like a really honest accounting of the assets that we have in the community, I think it can go a really, really, really long way. And, you know, one more piece I'll throw in there before we kind of go into some of the slides is, as it relates to my financial services practice, you know, I started a business about 2 years ago or so, primarily because I wanted to up my own financial IQ. And, you know, I was turning 40. I had made more money than I had made in my life up to that point, but I also felt like I didn't have anything to show for it. Like, where is it going? You know, I'm not, if you see me driving around town, you definitely know it didn't go to my car, right? I got an '05 Ford Focus that my kids hate when I drop them off in the front of the school, but it's paid off. So I'm going to drive that thing till the wheels fall off. It's a badge of honor for me now. So the personal element, as it relates to financial literacy, personal finance, saving for your kids' college, retirement planning, those are some of the practices that I've started to help other people with. And the month of September is Life Insurance Awareness Month. So I want people to be aware of all of these things. I want us to be a community. I want us to be able to take care of each other and to think about things in, you know, non-traditional ways to the extent possible. So I'll stop there. And, you know, we still have, what, 7, 8 people on the call. If folks don't mind, let's do a quick round of intros. There's one person here specifically, a gentleman, Zach, that I'd like to introduce to you folks. And maybe we can do that before we even launch into the slides and continue our conversation about economic development. Anybody joining us for the first time here tonight that would like to say something? Or if you're a repeat offender, we'd love to hear from you too.
You guys have the ability to unmute yourselves. I've already got some questions. We'll get to those in a bit, Jim and Pamela. Let me unmute Zach. Do you want to go and do that? We'll unmute Zach. And
yeah, let's unmute Zach. And if Zach doesn't mind, let me say 1 or 2 quick things that I believe are significant about this young man. And then I'll let him follow up and correct me if I've, you know, misspoke. Zach is a young entrepreneur. He's a recent high school graduate from High Tech High. And you may have seen this young man on the news recently because he's trying to reopen a business in the former Ryan Brothers site, which I think is a fantastic location. This kid is 18, 19 years old, and I think this is exactly the type of entrepreneurial spirit we should be supporting, and helping young people find ways to make their dreams come true, to activate vacant and underutilized spaces in our community. And I'll stop there and let Mr. Hamlet tell his story. Zach, go ahead, sir.
Zach,
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Zachary Hamlet. Oh, sorry. Go for it.
No, I was just going to say, feel free to turn your video on if you'd like. You don't have to, but you're welcome to.
I don't look as good as most people on this call.
All right, man.
So yes, I'm Zachary Hamlet. I'm 19 years old, just turned 19 August. I'm planning on opening up a coffee apothecary as well as an incubator for small businesses in Lemon Grove, right next to Lemon. And it's going to be community based. And my goal is really to help other new entrepreneurs like myself to grow big. And then I also want the community to have somewhere to come to support one another, to grow. So that's what I'm about. Thank you for having me here, by the way.
Thank you for joining us. We look forward to hearing more about your endeavors and, finding more ways to support the work that you're doing. Right. If anybody else would like to introduce themselves or say something, or even maybe field a couple of questions, why don't we go ahead and open it up? I don't want to put people on the spot. I know it's death by Zoom meeting for a lot of people during most of the day. So the chance to be on a call and listen in and remain somewhat anonymous is cherished.
I've got one question from Jim, but I also wanted to just welcome Nora real quick. And Seth Smith is joining back with us too. Nora, just so you know, we're going around introducing ourselves. You don't have to, but if you'd like to in just a second, we'd love to hear from you a little bit about what you're here for and things like that. Seth, welcome back. But the question from Jim, I'm not sure it's Jim or Pamela, but I'm pretty sure it's Jim, but it might be both of you. What are your opinions of sanctuary cities, and would you advocate for Lemon Grove to be a sanctuary city?
It's a really good question. I'm sure nobody really likes answering a question with a question. What exactly do you mean when you say sanctuary city? I want to be as clear as possible.
I'm going to unmute Jim real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, Kamaal, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Okay, yeah. Kamaal, it's similar to what we hear about in San Francisco, where you have undocumented workers, people, aliens, whatever the current politically correct term is, of allowing them to come, preventing no communication between the arresting agent, perhaps, and ICE, all those aspects of people that are here basically illegally. And understand where I'm coming from. I love some of these people. I have direct contact with them. I sold a house, one of my rentals, to one of the guys. Outstanding family, wonderful family. But that being beside it, I'm still interested in all the potential problems that have occurred in other cities by taking on this, it used to be conservative and liberal, now it's left and right, unfortunately. And so some of these very left cities taking on that, to me, is detrimental. And so I wanted your opinion on it.
Well, thank you for that. So first order of business is we're not San Francisco, right? In so many ways. And at the same time, we're basically, we're 20 minutes from the busiest border crossing on the planet Earth, right? Like the San Diego, Tijuana mega region is exactly that. It's one of the most important metropolitan areas on the West Coast. And if you put the metropolitan populations together in the TJ metro area and the San Diego metro area, it rivals the size of Los Angeles. There are billions of dollars of economic activity that come across that border, daily, weekly. It's incredibly important. The relationship between the United States and Mexico is incredibly complex. We just had Mexican Independence Day just earlier this week. I'm no expert on Mexico, but one thing that I do understand is that the Mexican political system is arguably more like the United States is than any other country, in the world. They're literally the United States of Mexico. They got 31 states, we got 50. They got the DF, we got DC. They're in incredible connections, codependencies, and shared need. Without Mexico and their manufacturing base, the labor base, in addition to all of the people who, cross to go to school, to work, and all these things, literally our country could not function. Now, that being said, what does the designation of a sanctuary city get you? It's a political position, right? There's no form that you file to become a sanctuary city, obviously. And I can say outright, I want Lemon Grove to be a place where everybody feels welcome. I want Lemon Grove to be a place that embraces and wraps its arms around everybody who wants to be a part of the community here. I don't think that there's a need to create an external or artificial designation to be provocative, or even if the intention is to be supportive. What I think is important is, what people do and a recognition of, the shared need and kind of value that we all have and that we're all in this piece together. So I hope that's helpful, Jim.
Well, it is somewhat, but I guess it's like I mentioned about conservative, liberal, left, and right. To me, those are left and right are not conservative and liberal positions. So that said,
I don't support locking young people in cages. I don't support separating families at the border. I don't support 3- and 4-year-old children having to defend themselves in courts of law. I think it's absolutely reprehensible. I don't know if people have also heard, I don't want to get too far away from, our primary topic of discussion, but I think this is important. There are reports of, forced hysterectomies going on in ICE camps right now in detention centers. I don't know if people have caught wind of that as well. That's genocide, right? Forced sterilization. I don't want any part of a system or leadership structure that thinks that's moral, correct, even if there's some legal justification for it, right? Like some of the most horrific things that have taken place in this country have been legal. So
if I could interrupt,
please do, go ahead.
I very much agree with what some of what you said. And going back to the workforce, our country could not survive without those workers in our country. Anybody that doesn't realize that doesn't understand what's going on. We could not function. But let me try to be as specific as I can, because we've lost the communication or between, say, and I'm picking on ICE, just as an example, where a San Diego sheriff, Lemon Grove sheriff, make an arrest, does not and will not communicate with ICE. And this is a bad person. This is not your good worker that's here undocumented. Granted, like I said, I have many friends in that position, and I'm not going to turn them in. But if they screw up, if they break the law, then they have to answer for it. And if there's a federal agency that comes into Lemon Grove and says, notify us if you have somebody, then match our records to see if there's other potential problems. Would you stand as a firewall between those two agencies?
Yes.
Well, thank you for your frankness. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. I would like to, Tim wanted to introduce himself. Tim is here. Oh, we're letting someone else in too. If anybody else would like to introduce themselves, please feel free to let me know in the chat. I'm going to unmute Tim here, unless you can unmute yourself, but I'm going to do it right here. And we'll hear from Tim. There, I think you're on, Tim. Can you hear me?
Yeah, actually, it's Tim's wife, Cheryl. But he's here too. So you have Tim and Cheryl Felton here. Hello, everyone. Excited to be a part of this forum here, getting to know Kamaal and essentially just all our neighbors here. So excited to be a part of this program. Tim and I have lived in Lemon Grove since 2013. That's when we moved here, and we actually purchased our home in 2014. I guess you could say we're a relatively young couple with a almost 10-month-old baby. And so, just excited to, I guess you could say lay our roots here in Lemon Grove. And some of the things that I'm interested in, and I'm guessing my husband is too, is learning more about how we can improve Lemon Grove's, business district. Obviously downtown Lemon Grove, and more so welcoming more small businesses in the area, and I guess mainly just, if you can just give me, this might be a loaded question, if you can give me a reason why we should stay here in Lemon Grove. We love it here, but I guess it's mainly just wanting to know, just giving us reasons to stay and not venture somewhere else. But I don't know, Tim, do you have anything to add?
Need more culture here.
Okay. Culture is nice. In terms of diversity, Tim pulled up numbers, and I know we're a very, very diverse community, so that's exciting. And
public art, public music, public entertainment, that kind of thing.
Tim, I don't know if any of you know, he's a musician, so really values the arts and here in San Diego, and just wants to bring more of that here in our city of Lemon Grove. I think that's it. Tim, do you have anything else to add?
No.
So we're good.
Thank you for that question, Cheryl and Tim, and welcome to Lemon Grove, welcome to the call. And I was going to bring up a couple of slides that I had just to kind of provide a little bit of an overview on economic development in general. However, based on the question you just asked, I'm going to bring up a working document that I've been compiling that's really kind of a brainstorm of tools, strategies, tactics, ideas that are a reflection of, my own thinking, my own research, but also what I'm hearing from other people. It's important to me that we have leadership who listens, that reflects back the things that they hear, and someone who understands that they don't have to be the expert on anything. That's what experts are for. All we have to do is go find them. So I think it might be appropriate now for me to bring up this document and share my screen and just jump straight into some of the things that we've been kind of thinking about in our musings on where we can go from here. So first order of business, by no means is this an exhaustive document, right? This is a working document. It's a living and breathing document. I want to use it to continue to work on and to add as we go, and use it as a skeleton and a kind of a template and scaffolding that we can build on to take some of our next steps. So just the overall framework, when I think about economic development in Lemon Grove, there are kind of three tiers that I see. One is the need to stabilize development. Essentially, what are the things that we need to do immediately? What are the highest orders of business? And what are also some of the things that we can do that are low cost, no cost, that can begin to build some additional impact. We go from stabilize to sustain, and then we go down into strengthen. So we need to stabilize, sustain, and strengthen our community. And, it's a lot of words here, it's no pictures and pretty stuff. But some of the things that you just said, Cheryl, you and Tim specifically, I believe I've included on the, in the sustain category. So just kind of starting from the top there, when I think about the challenges that Lemon Grove is facing, it's become very clear to me that we are not unique, right? Like the slow death by 1,000 cuts of the small American city is something that's going on all over this country. And there are two cities in particular that have been of interest to me because of their comparable size and also to a certain extent comparable institutions that parallel some of those that we have here. So we're looking at Emporia, Kansas and Paducah, Kentucky. And I have another document that details some of the things that they've done. And, arts and culture have been a big piece of that work as well. And, while I'm reading work that's been done on Emporia and Paducah, by no means is that document my original research. So I want to be clear about that. Somebody else did that work. All I had to do was go find it. But I think that ties back into my point again is we don't need to be the experts. We just need to know who's already done the work and go find it. So when I look at Lemon Grove, and for someone who's just moved here or someone who's thinking about moving here, to ask like, oh, like there are things that are great, there are things that we like, but there are some other things that we're not so in love with. Why should we stay, right? Like it's a tough question to kind of hear, but it's a really real question and, one that warrants attention. So to that end, there are about 5 things, big picture that jump out for me that I would throw in the category of kind of branding and placemaking. I think about, who are we as a community and what do we want to be known for? And when I talk to people outside of the community, Lemon Grove, unfortunately, does not have a reputation for being much of anything. For most San Diegans, Lemon Grove is an afterthought. It's definitely flying below the radar. And depending on how long you've been in San Diego County, that'll kind of make a determination as to what you think about Lemon Grove and what you come to Lemon Grove for. And for the majority of people in this county, Lemon Grove is kind of a place that people pass through. And one of the ones that there are 2 pieces that really frustrate me when I tell people I live in Lemon Grove. The first one is, oh, you live in Lemon Grove? It's great. I love their downtown. It's so cute. There's that coffee shop that's right there and the antique places. And I'm like, no, that's La Mesa. And they're like, oh, La Mesa. I'm like, oh, so where's Lemon Grove then? So people think Lemon Grove is La Mesa, which isn't a bad thing. La Mesa is great. It's super cute. They've done a lot, especially in the past 20 years. I think Brian can speak to that because he saw it happen right before his eyes. And the other one that really annoys me is when I tell people I live in Lemon Grove and they're like, ooh, like, what's that like? Is it okay? And it's like, yeah, it's fine. We don't live in a slum. We don't live in some, shanty town or, I have a lot of pride in our community. And I understand that we're not at our best right now, but I believe absolutely that we have tremendous potential. And there are lots of things that are kind of already happening here. And if we can connect the dots in a thoughtful and intentional way, I think we can build on that. So 5 things that I kind of see Lemon Grove being known for when I look at the assets that are already here. First one is health and wellness. I feel like Lemon Grove should be this oasis of tranquility and healing and calm in the middle of this urban, chaos. This oasis, literally 10 minutes from downtown. We've got a lovely senior center with a cute circular building that's recognized architecturally in a number of different circles. We have a tremendous asset in a recreation center. And while the city's current financial situation has prevented the rec center from being as active as it needs to be, I feel like that's something that we absolutely have to address. We have the Optimum Health Institute here. I can't afford to, stay there or do stuff, but apparently people come from all around the state, for treatments, for retreats, for, meditations, other things like that. I think it's something that we can, amplify. We have a number of assisted living facilities here. We have a county health and human services family resource center here. We have, I believe, 3 La Maestra clinics here, a community family care clinic, a dental clinic, some other kind of low, reduced cost healthcare service. I think health and wellness is something that people should begin to associate with the name of Lemon Grove and become part of our brand. The second piece is green space. And we had a forum, just the last forum we did was about green space. The first order of business, or the most important piece within that, I believe, is the Connect Main Street project. And for those of you who are familiar, the Connect Main Street project is, a concept and a plan that already exists that the city just hasn't been able to find all of the money for, to create a linear park starting from Broadway and Main Street, essentially going all the way down on city-owned property to the Massachusetts trolley stop. Now, for those of you who can visualize the area, imagine what a safe, walkable, bikeable green space with, an urban food shed could do, not just for people's ability to get out of their home and recreate, but for property values along that corridor, and also for, like the first domino to kind of push down that begins to knock all the other pieces in a row as we begin to demonstrate transformation within our community. As that project is being built, people are going to pass by it on the trolley every day coming in and out of this town. And on that trolley, they're going, El Cajon, Santee, but all the way back into downtown. Soon the Purple Line will be active. It'll be a great visual representation of transformation. And, when complete, I believe a park that'll be unlike any other in San Diego County. Another piece that I see that I think is tremendously important and overlooked is Choyas Creek and the opportunity to do some really meaningful watershed restoration. One of the, beginning points of Choyas Creek is right here in Lemon Grove. And Choyas Creek has been thought to be the most neglected watershed in all of San Diego County. And going along with the Connect Main Street project, that restoration work could have a tremendous impact. And one of the things that we're envisioning is, much further down the line is the opportunity to have uninterrupted, protected green space going from Lemon Grove through southeastern San Diego, through Logan, through National City, essentially all the way to the Bay. Imagine being able to ride your bike on a protected path from Lemon Grove to the water and back. It would be tremendous, for the overall ability of our community to recreate, to bring people here, opportunities for businesses, for pop-ups, for other cultural expressions and activities. I think it could be absolutely tremendous. Along that same line, we're talking about a linear park. We're talking about safe pedestrian spaces. How can we expand, some of our commons and public spaces? How can we take the agricultural roots and heritage of Lemon Grove so we can see more rooftop gardens, so we can see urban agriculture? I would love to see a future in Lemon Grove where as people drive on the 94, whether you're going east or west, it'll probably start off with, a couple of dots, and then it becomes a patchwork, but eventually a sea of green rooftops. What that could do for reducing the heat island effect, what it could do for preventing stormwater runoff, what it could do for, attracting pollinators that are beneficial. Imagine being able to smell citrus as you're driving on the 94. I mean, we're Lemon Grove, but the grove of lemons isn't here anymore. These are the types of things we should be thinking about how to bring back. The green belt idea. This is something that came up in conversations with Seth and with Eric and a number of other people. The opportunity to use a protected green space is kind of a signal of demarcation and also a design feature to let you know that you've arrived in Lemon Grove, but also using that green belt for, urban agricultural uses or other beneficial uses related to, health, wellness, a local food system, the restoration of watersheds. I think these are all connected and the types of things that should become synonymous with Lemon Grove that are part of a broader strategy of economic development. You'll see number 3, arts and culture. Arts and culture has to be a big part of our city, right? We already have a tremendous presence of public art. There are a few performing arts organizations here. A fantastic one is going to be relocating here to the mixed use space right below the Citronica development, right over by the trolley stop, Transcendence. I think that'll be a huge asset. But how can we brand Lemon Grove as a go-to place for artists of all kinds, for the performing arts, for music, for theater? I would love to see the creation of a Lemon Grove Arts Advisory Council to specifically find ways to take that up and amplify it. You know, Brian, he's an artist himself. There may be other artists on the call here. Everywhere you go around the country, if you begin to look at what strategies other communities have put in place to develop, grow, generate revenue, bring people into their community who want to spend money, give people a reason to stay, arts and culture is a huge part of it. And I believe that's absolutely essential. And again, just another kind of tidbit into me as a person. I have a bachelor's degree in history, and my minor was in arts and administration. I went to school to be a museum curator. That's what I thought I wanted to do as a career. I've never actually worked in a museum, but I still love art. I still love culture and all those pieces. So it's not only personally relevant to me and part of who I am, but I think has to be a huge piece of where we go as a community as well. Another piece that I think is interesting is the idea of like a makers or a DIY quarter. When I think about Lemon Grove and like what's the most happening place on a Saturday afternoon, Home Depot is the spot, right? Like there are a lot of people here doing projects, whether you're, you know, a contractor, whether you're a backyard person, whether you're doing, you know, the honey-do list, whatever the case may be. And I live right by Harbor Freight. So I hear these deliveries coming all time of days and night, and their business is booming, let me tell you. But all that tells me is, you know, there are a lot of people here who are makers, who are craftspeople, who are artisans, who have trades. I think that's something that's worthy of amplification. And how can we build around that? How can we create other opportunities to bring people here to do exactly that? What other types of events can we do where people can, you know, sell their wares when we get back to, you know, non-socially distanced real life? I think it could be interesting to explore just the retail spaces. Home Depot, Harbor Freight, RCP Stone, they're all pretty significant parts of our local economy in terms of the tax base, especially Home Depot. So I think those are important things we have to consider. And the fifth item there, the idea of the greater southeastern San Diego. And if you bear with me for a moment, I'm actually going to bring up another document that has a map that might help provide a little bit of a greater context. Lemon Grove, while we're the gateway to East County, we're really southeastern San Diego, right? Like depending on where you live in the community, let's see here. The end of your street might be San Diego. Can I share this now? Thank you for bearing with me. Great. So this is a concept that I've been wrestling with in some of my nonprofit work, a group called Project New Village. We do a lot of work around urban agriculture, health and wellness, regenerative placemaking. We own a property on Market Street in the Mount Hope area of San Diego. It used to be our community garden, and we bought it about a year ago. And we're going to be doing a mixed use development where there's going to be a grocery store and public market on the ground floor. Our organization space will go on the second floor, and we're doing senior housing on the top 2 floors. The southeastern San Diego area, Lemon Grove, National City, Logan, Paradise Hills. If you look at this catchment area here, all of the communities between the 15, the 125, east to west, and north to south, the 94 to the 54. There are almost 300,000 people in this corridor. Tremendous shared experience in terms of demographics, tremendous similarity in terms of shared need, but perhaps most importantly, a tremendous similarity in terms of all of these communities being underinvested in and undercapitalized. One of the things that I would like to see happen is Lemon Grove take its role as a regional leader and kind of building around the concept of defensible space. I used to be a wildland firefighter back in the day. And, defensible space, for those of you who know, we live in Southern California and fires are very real, is, like the place that's already been damaged essentially, or, enough of a barrier where you can begin to build and fight to protect everything else around it from that area. And with Lemon Grove in the northeast corner of this, greater southeastern San Diego, I think it's the perfect opportunity strategically to use the borders and barriers of the built environment themselves. Trying to leverage MTS money, trying to leverage Caltrans money, trying to leverage federal money to create a corridor where, through regenerative investment in Lemon Grove that's focused on watershed restoration, that's focused on green space, that's focused on healing, and creating a green wave that would move through Lemon Grove all throughout southeastern San Diego and takes us all the way to San Diego Bay eventually. One of the things that I've learned in the philanthropic space, being a nonprofit board member, where I'm being a part of stewarding a $20 million construction project, is the idea of capital absorption. And one of the reasons that funders will tell you they don't give to projects is because much like water is unable to be absorbed by hardscape, many of our communities either don't have the capacity or enough projects in the hopper to warrant enough of the investment that they need. If we continue to look at Lemon Grove in isolation, I don't think we're going to get where we need to be. But if we can brand ourselves using the assets and the gifts that we already have, I believe that we can position ourselves and take some initiative as leaders regionally and be the vanguard of development throughout this entire area and literally create a change that would have an incredibly beneficial impact on the quality of life for not just Lemon Grove residents, but hundreds of thousands of San Diegans at the same time. And scale, I've also found, is important in the philanthropic space. The Connect Main Street project is a $12 million project, and we've got somewhere between $4 and $6 million, and we still need about half. The idea that we can't find $6 million to me is absurd. In the grand scheme of things, that's not really a lot of money. Now, for one of us to have $6 million laying around as individuals, it's a ton of money. But if we're talking about cities, it's no money. Part of the challenge and part of the problem we're experiencing is we don't do a good job of telling our story. We don't do a good job of framing our narrative, and the extent to which we're able to take control of that, lift it up, partner with other entities, our ability to partner with other municipalities and leverage their philanthropic and foundation relationships, I think sky's the limit. And I'm gonna stop sharing there and just kind of pause for a second, because I've been talking a lot, and see what resonates or what doesn't with the things we've talked about thus far. And if folks like, I'm happy to bring up one of these other documents or field some additional questions.
We've got two questions actually from Seth, both kind of relevant to what you were just talking about. I'll start with the first one that came a little bit ago, but during the recent mayoral forum that East County Magazine hosted, Mayor Vasquez stated that during her tenure, the city of Lemon Grove's credit rating was upgraded to BBB+, right? Meaning that we now have the opportunity to bond and to borrow money. Are there any projects or programs to improve the economy that you would implement using Lemon Grove's newly upgraded credit?
So the first answer is not right now. And I say that because our residents just shot down Measure S. Bonds, taxes, while valuable, vital, and essential in many cases, I don't know if the city of Lemon Grove is ready for a bond project just yet. One of the reasons that I believe Measure S didn't pass is because not enough residents have either the faith, the trust, or a clear enough sense of understanding through, a transparent process of communication that the money from that tax increase is going to be used judiciously, that the programs that it's going to be put into reflect the needs that we have. By no means am I opposed to a bond program. I'm not aware of a project right now that is bond worthy, nor am I confident at the moment that Lemon Grove residents would not be up in arms over the idea of a bond when we still haven't figured our way out of structural deficit. Now, if there are some projects that you think are compelling and could propel us in the right direction, I'd love to hear more about that. But I don't have anything in the hopper right now where I'm chomping at the bit to do. I will say one thing that I'm really curious about. The city of Chula Vista has a bond with its school district that'll be on the ballot this November to do teacher housing. I think those are really interesting projects. The relationship between the school district and the city is a tremendously important and a valuable one. I know that there used to be more regular interaction amongst both of their respective elective bodies, but some of that has been on hold for a while. That's something that I definitely love to reinstitute for a number of reasons. School district owns a lot of property, and much like stadiums, schools are empty a lot of the time, right? But we're still paying for them. What else can we do creatively to create additional services that can serve as hubs within the community? There are schools who are doing things now to bring health clinics on campuses. There are schools who are bringing laundromats on campuses. There are schools who are bringing counseling and social work services on campuses. I absolutely think that we should be exploring these types of opportunities to leverage the facilities that we already have here and, find ways to make them serve people in the best fashion possible.
Great. And as an employee of a college currently enjoying some very good bond measures, I think all those things are very interesting. In fact, I have a new performing arts center I haven't moved into yet because of a bond measure. So yeah. Seth had another question too, kind of just about what you were just talking about. The term pedestrian shed, often defined as about a quarter mile or a 5-minute walk, or about the distance that a person is willing to walk to a destination rather than drive to it. We currently have 2 trolley stops in Lemon Grove located about 1.5 miles apart from one another. In order for the trolley corridor to be truly walkable within the pedestrian shed, would you support provisions to reserve space for a future trolley stop between the two that we have now? And how would your economic plan leverage the trolley stops with or without an additional location?
So, to be completely honest, I'd never given any thought to the necessity or the viability of a third trolley stop between the two. The thought had never crossed my mind. So I can't really answer beyond that, but now that you've said it, it's got my wheels turning. Just in terms of how some of the economic development activity that we're proposing would leverage the trolley stop, I think the Connect Main Street project and the opportunity to say specifically at the Massachusetts trolley stop, where there's a bit more, property to build on. And I don't know if I had that conversation with you, Seth, but I've had conversations with other people where is the answer, a small hotel? Is the answer townhomes? Is the answer, some other residential development project, another mixed use project potentially? I like the idea of bringing some type of hospitality rated development to Lemon Grove for the opportunity to bring TOT revenue to the city. Anything that we could do to get money from people who don't live here, I think is even better, right? And I'm not saying we have to put a hotel in that spot, but I think the extent to which, as we build out the Connect Main Street project, we should be exploring other ways that these trolley stops, where we can continue to leverage the economic development opportunity that they represent. And another piece that I'll throw out, I live in the Celsius building, so I get to see the activity that's going on. I get to see the Promenade Park, but there's also a parcel that's in that footprint that has not been built upon yet. It's owned by you know, an outside entity architect who, you know, has his offices down in Hillcrest. And I think he has some ideas for doing something on Lemon Grove in terms of, you know, his vision for doing something artistic, for doing something creative. And I'm almost certain he'd like to go higher than a lot of people would like to see. If you are having a hard time visualizing the parcel, I don't blame you, because it's not big, right? Like, it couldn't be a massive or monstrous development, but it could be something, some type of tower or something like that. Potentially even something that ends up being iconic. When I hear people talk about it, it sounds like one of those ideas that, you know, everybody who was alive while it was getting built absolutely hated it. And then when we're all dead, people love it. I have no idea what's actually going to happen. But I think the extent to which we can also think about parcels that are unutilized or underutilized is exactly what we should be thinking about. And again, one of the first things we'd like to do in November is to bring together a resident-led and driven economic development committee, so we can start to have some of these conversations, and we can empower people to think as creatively as they possibly can. And, you know, the city is there as, you know, a sounding board, but also as, you know, a boost to a certain extent. I think part of how we're going to get by is the city getting out of the way of certain projects that are relevant to the community and that people are passionate about. So I hope that answered your question, Seth.
James has a question, and then I actually have a question after James's. What are your thoughts on a Lemon Grove Chamber of Commerce?
I love it. I absolutely love it. I believe I had it in section 3 under strengthen. I think we need to bring back a Chamber of Commerce. It's my understanding we used to have one, and it kind of started and stopped and fits and starts for a number of different reasons. I would love to see a business improvement district in Lemon Grove or some other form of assessment district. I think the planning and the conversations for those pieces need to happen now. I don't think we're ready today, but I do think we can begin talking about them today and putting the pieces in place today. And I think those are, you know, really, really essential functions. And for what it's worth, you know, we're supposedly represented by the East County Chamber of Commerce, and I'm sure we've gotten some benefits from that association throughout the years, but they were one of the main entities opposed to Measure S. That's really funny to me. The Chamber of Commerce that we're paying dues to, that we're members of, is saying, no, you guys shouldn't raise your sales tax. That doesn't add up to me. So James, I would love to see a local chamber get resurrected. Now, let me also say, there are things that the city can support and the city should support, and there are also some things the city isn't necessarily the one to start, right? The city isn't the entity to start the Chamber of Commerce, but the city will work very closely with the Chamber of Commerce. And that's why a resident-led committee of people who are really committed to and engaged in economic development from a broad variety of disciplines and experiences is going to be really vital, because that's how we're going to push that uphill.
Great. That just prompted another question, but this is kind of a two-part question for me. Jerry actually clarified some things on social media today about that property that is the kind of piece of blight down on kind of across from Home Depot that's been in the court system for some years. How do you encourage the court system to work faster to allow us to develop a property that is clearly an issue for a lot of people in Lemon Grove? And then on the Chamber of Commerce thought side, if we not to get one soon, how do you work with Mary England and La Mesa's Chamber of Commerce, who also stood squarely in our way of Measure S?
So on the legal piece, I would imagine that there are some very particular maneuverings and pieces that are, the knowledge is simply above my pay grade at this time to understand the way that machinery works. I think it is clear that as a city, and with all of the elected officials that we have here and all the other regional bodies that we sit on, that we should have the relationships in place to know exactly where to go to find those answers and to advocate to make that piece move. So I don't know how that sausage is made, but I know where the factory is, if that makes sense. To the piece about our own chamber, how long it would take to start, the necessity of it, and who we should work with in the meantime, I think we should work with everybody who has an interest in our success, growth, and well-being. I'm a firm believer in the idea of common ground for the common good. I'm not a huge fan of naming people's names, especially when they're not here to defend themselves. But I have a huge problem with anybody who, specifically someone who used to be an elected official here, now taking up arms against our fair city. And I would be wary of collaboration with anybody who would cross that line.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a question? I don't have any more questions in the chat. Does anybody else want to unmute and maybe have a question? Oh, I got a question as I was speaking. What do you think about hiring a small business liaison from the city of Lemon Grove that would perform tasks such as seeking out and assisting small businesses in moving to Lemon Grove or helping small businesses through the permitting process?
I think that could be fantastic. One of the things that we had talked about hoping to accomplish was the creation of an enterprise fund with some of the tax revenue. I'm not certain whether or not the best fit for those job functions is a city employee specifically. Maybe it happens through the chamber. Maybe it happens through the chamber first and then through the city. I think all those options are on the table, but I absolutely agree with the need to have some type of liaison, not only to help expedite the permitting process potentially, but someone to be, a cheerleader for our city, and someone to be the record keeper, the point of contact for all of our economic development activities, so that people can have a clearer idea of, when a business goes vacant and there's a storefront that everybody has a fantastic idea about what should go there and why nothing is happening there. We need to know who we can go to answer those questions and to see what's been done. If anybody has gone on the city website and kind of looked at some of the marketing collateral that the city uses, you'd be appalled. Some of the links haven't been updated since 2014. Some of the dustiest virtual files I've ever come across in my life. So again, I would love to see an economic development committee take up that charge, right? Like, let's reassess what we've been using. Let's update it. Let's have some conversations about our branding, about our identity, how we grow, how we move forward, and create some materials to start creating interest in our town. So I'm definitely not opposed to the idea of that type of liaison. And I think the functionality is absolutely essential. I don't have a clear answer what the best place for that function to live is yet. But I'm hoping through, a lot of vigorous discussion, discourse, engagement, we'll be able to figure out what makes the most sense.
Seth said he could specify a little bit more. Seth, do you want to unmute yourself on that subject? And then we've got like 3 other questions too coming up. So,
yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
I think specifically what I was thinking is, for example, I'm working with a client who we're doing an architectural project for, but they are also setting up their business. Mm-hmm. And they're having problems getting their permits and licenses and whatnot in the city of San Diego, which is lots of red tape, as everyone knows. We don't have that much red tape in Lemon Grove, but whatever we can do to hold their hands in a sense, to say, look, this is how we're going to do it. Let's walk through step by step. Let's make it so you have someone to come to and talk to. If we can make the red tape seem easy, then we can really make ourselves stand out as, I want to put my business here because they're going to walk me through along the way.
Yeah. Great. No, thank you for clarifying that. And it makes a ton of sense. Another piece that I'll add to that in defense of city staff, per capita, we have one of the most underpaid city staffs in the county. And we're asking them to do a tremendous amount, and they're having to do things that city employees and other communities just wouldn't imagine that they'd have to do. I mean, we got people are emptying their own trash. People are bringing office supplies from home. It's not supposed to happen. It's a parallel in many respects to what we've seen in public schools and the things that teachers have to deal with.
Mhm.
It's unbelievable to me that teachers should have to go in their own pockets to pay for school supplies to educate children. And it's just as absurd to me that, people who work in a city would have to do similar things. Perhaps before we bring in somebody to serve that function, what are we doing to make sure that we're staffed at the most appropriate levels within the city? And while there is value in, being frugal and figuring out how to do more with less, at a certain point, we have to do a little bit better and, pay people what they're worth, provide an accurate workload and workflow for them. And I think all those things have to be accounted for at the same time. I think we should take our time with city staffing. And sometimes when, positions go vacant and there are hiring freezes and things don't get filled, it gets tougher. And it's not necessarily red tape, but it becomes a bandwidth and a capacity issue. So that's one of the things that I definitely like to explore and, see what we can do collectively to right the ship. But again, to your initial question, I really do like the idea of creating a dedicated function as a way of distinguishing ourselves and setting ourselves apart from other communities to let folks know Lemon Grove is serious about getting projects done. We're serious about developing. We're serious about growing. And we want to work with you. You bring good projects to us. We're going to bring them to our planning commission. We're going to have them heard at council. And we want to get stuff in motion.
Great. I'm going to combine these next two questions because they're similar, and then I'm going to pop out for just a second to kiss my little one goodnight. Is there going to be another debate? And how was the forum experience for you? Are there similar other venues where Lemon Grove residents might participate in coming up as a whole? And I shall return.
Fantastic questions. To my knowledge, there are no current debates for Lemon Grove candidates that are scheduled. However, I will share with you, I'm also active in our San Diego NAACP chapter. I'm our political action chair. And one of the things that we're doing right now is we're working with the League of Women Voters to host 2 candidate forums, one for San Diego Unified School District and one for San Diego County Office of Education. What's great about that is the League of Women Voters does all of the heavy lifting in terms of they provide the technology platform, they provide the moderator. All you have to do is do the outreach to contact the candidates, confirm the dates. So if people would like to see another debate that's focused on Lemon Grove, the mayoral race, school board races, city council races, the first place I would go is reach out to the League of Women Voters. They know what they're doing. They're doing a ton of these, and they still have capacity and some open spaces. So I think that would be a great place to go to help lift up the messages that all the candidates have to make sure that people have the opportunity to hear from folks. Social media and digital media has become even more important in this current era where candidates aren't knocking on doors the same way, where they're not out there shaking hands because we're trying to be respectful of the need to social distance and these other pieces. So that's what I would encourage people to do, but no, I'm not currently aware of any other debates that are scheduled at the moment. And to the first part of that question, it was a fantastic opportunity for me, I believe. I'm always eager to have the opportunity to engage with the other candidates, to have our messages heard in front of residents, and for residents to see right there for themselves what makes sense to you, what doesn't. What do you want more of? What do you want less of? And from my perspective, I think a lot of that came across. I would be very eager to participate in another exchange like that. Let's make it happen, somebody.
Tim has a question that's a kind of question after my own heart because I lived in the La Mesa Village as it grew up, which was really fascinating to watch and amazing to be a part of. And so I love this question, Tim. Should we consider just being one lane each way through downtown so that we can add more parking or other trees, decorative planters, and maybe eventually host the farmers market there or host a yearly community street fair there, etc.?
I think all of those ideas are still under advisement. One of the things that I don't say I'm wary of, but I try and think deeply about is with all of the needs that we have in terms of our infrastructure and the opportunities that we're going to have to build, grow, and develop. I would hate to spend $3-4 million on a project in the next 5 years that seems like it made a lot of sense when we could have waited and used that money and got a higher multiplier of return and impact on a larger or, you know, more impactful project had we waited. I think there are needs for a lot of traffic studies still in different parts of Lemon Grove, especially as there seems to be an increase in a desire to construct. And just recently, the last City Mark project, where I think the appeal was turned down, and maybe Seth can share some more detail about this, one of the pieces that caused some tension was the need for a traffic study. And as someone who lives in the Celsius building and deals with the Lemon Grove realignment project every day, it works better when the lights are blinking. And I don't think it's supposed to be that way, right? But I think that says something about the flow hasn't yet entirely settled. There's still some undergrounding projects that haven't happened yet. So just on the design front, personally, I'm very much inclined to expanding the footprint for protected, walkable, and bikeable space. At the same time, I'm cautious about being in a rush to do it. I want us to be able to leverage our hard-fought, earned, and won resources to the fullest extent possible. And, you know, ideally, I would like to see situations where, you know, every public dollar that's invested, you know, yields a 10, 20, or, you know, $30 return of private investment for each public dollar. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I hope it acknowledges it.
Seth has wanted to just clarify a bit on the project that you just mentioned.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
I'm going to unmute you, Seth. There you go.
Yeah, so that project was approved by the Planning Commission, and one of the, actually probably the strongest comment on there outside of the reduced parking. One of the comments was people desired a traffic study for their project. However, guidelines for traffic studies, that project does not break the cap where it's actually required. And so that's why that was dismissed, in that it doesn't create enough traffic to require a traffic study. We could do one, but it doesn't have a significant enough impact where that traffic study would come up with anything. Yeah. Go
ahead.
Yeah. The other issue was parking in that, and that's something that's beyond our control, because when projects let low-income housing come in, there is a reduced parking mandate by the state of California that we can't do anything about. We can't say we want more parking. We can look at the units and say, oh, we think that there should be more, but if there are low-income units, the state says that we can't ask for that.
Do you happen to remember how far away from the threshold that project was from the limit? I feel like the limit is like 1,000 trips per whatever, and that project might have been in the 700 somewhere. Does that sound close?
That sounds familiar, yeah.
In your understanding and estimation as an architect and a planning commissioner, on a practical level, what is the difference between, 200 more or less vehicle trips? What does that look like?
It really depends on the use of the building. So that being a residence, it's going to be rush hour traffic. You're not going to have traffic during the night. You're not going to have traffic during the middle of the day, and which is compatible with the use that is there, being mostly business. You're getting a lot of your traffic during the middle of the day and not during the rush hour on those particular streets. Not being a traffic engineer, I don't think I can really accurately say what that looks like in a visual term. That is something that would be more for a civil engineer or a traffic engineer than it would be for myself. There was, on the idea of having one lane in each direction, I think that could be feasible if done correctly. And like I had brought up Lancaster Boulevard in Lancaster, California. Further north, they did exactly that. It's a great business area now. It thrives. Some of my favorite restaurants and cart shops are there. And we could do something similar to that, which would expand parking and help with pedestrian space. Though I agree that it might not be something that we want to invest a lot of money into right away. We have other projects that we can get up off the ground that would have more benefit than that one at this point. As you've mentioned some of them. But what we can do in that space is we can really get into the pedestrian space design elements. So things being city code and building code, saying this is what we want this Broadway space to look like. And then when people choose to invest, such as put that apartment complex on the corner of Broadway and Grove, then we can say, we require you to do X, Y, and Z for the street, the sidewalk, the parking, as a trade-off for like the height increase they had asked for. They had a covering that went over the height limit. I asked for those things and got a few of them during the planning commission meeting, but I feel that I shouldn't be asking for that. It should be part of our code.
No, thanks for that.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna bring back the kind of brainstorm document on the share screen and see what additional questions that might prompt from people who are joining us. So if there was another question, go ahead and fire away, and I'm gonna go ahead and bring this back up.
Great, there is, and it's on the topic we're talking about right now. This is something I just learned about myself too. Back to kind of downtown, this is from Tim. It's my understanding that the south side of the street has owners that refuse to beautify and upkeep their side of the street. How can we deal with that to bring it up to the quality of what's on the north side? I know there's an ownership extension into the parking spaces, if that's my understanding of that issue. But it's a great question. How do we convince the one side to beautify to keep up with the other side?
Yeah, that's a really, really big question, right? Because it's immediately obvious to folks the difference between the north and the south side of the street, where you have city doing trash collection. Trash collection is not happening on the south side, and we have this patchwork of ownership that's prevented any meaningful unified development from happening. Since we lost redevelopment back in 2012, some of the tools that we had are not in our toolkit anymore. And the city hasn't had the resources to purchase and bank land so that they could take their time, grow its portfolio of properties, and then present that to the right developer. At the same time, I think that's part of exactly what has to happen, and the extent to which we can bring in revenue from other places or attract the right developer with the right vision to attempt to do something in one fell swoop, gaining control of those individual parcels is going to be a time-consuming process unless we either come into a large amount of money or have someone with really deep pockets who has a clear sense of how that project can pencil out. And I think that's also part of, or kind of connected to some of the other questions that we've been asking about other improvements that we could be doing that could be beneficial or feasible, like reducing the traffic lanes and expanding pedestrian space. I don't have the clear answer today about how to make that happen, but that's, in my mind, a priority in terms of developing a strategy to wrap our heads around for city government going forward. Because until we're able to do something meaningful with that entire southern strip on Broadway, between Lemon Grove Ave and Kempf almost, it's going to be really tough to get something done in that downtown village, other than a development here, a development there. And I suppose the more piecemeal a project becomes, the more inconsistent other pieces looks, and the more potential for the project to not flow and be integrated in a way that's most beneficial and pleasing, not just in terms of, aesthetics and form, but, functionality and flow as well. So it's a huge problem, and it's something that we need to pay a lot of special attention on. And, maybe there's a task force that we need to really come up with and get a clear sense of what it would take to purchase all of those properties and put together a package or a proposal as if we already own them, and begin to attract people to get them to think about what they could do as a developer if there was site control of that property already. So maybe almost reverse engineering it and working backwards from there and seeing what type of interest we can get.
Great. There's another question here, but I did want to welcome Simi is here. They were trying to figure out what time it was tonight, so I'm really glad you're here. We'll talk about the schedule once we get to the end here in just a few minutes, but welcome. James, to address your two annoyances regarding the image of Lemon Grove, what thoughts do you have on a public relations and promotion? Or what thoughts do you have on public relations and promotion? And do we need staff in place, or should that be outsourced?
I think public relations and promotion is going to be absolutely essential. I think we don't need a city staff person to do that immediately. I think a lot of that can be contracted out. I think a lot of it can be kind of bootstrapped with city volunteers and some of our economic development community. I think we probably have a lot of that expertise in-house already. We may even have some of that on our call right now. So I definitely think that that's a huge, valuable piece for us. I don't know that function needs to be city staff. It definitely doesn't right now. In the future, perhaps. But then again, when I think about, a chamber of commerce, business improvement district, I could see a lot of those pieces happening there. But I think for the time being, between volunteers, outside consultants, we could probably do most of that work at that level. Really significant, though.
So that's it in the question chat right now. You want to just kind of pull this back up and see if it sparked any other questions folks might have? Is that kind of what we're doing?
Yeah, that was the intention. Let me scroll all the way down to the strengthen category. There are some creative financing tools that I think we should be thinking about. Tax abatement, value recapture, tax increment funding, municipal enterprise. Housing development is going to be a big part of, how we build our way out of the situation that we're in. Looking at the role that zoning plays. Experimenting with, upzoning, rezoning. What if the entire city was zoned multi-use? I think there are all types of things we should be thinking about. I think the opportunity for additional urban infill projects is going to be huge. Of course, again, with the role of transit-oriented development is, it's almost all we have in that sense. And I think that speaks to one of the earlier questions about how we can leverage transit within a broader strategy of economic development. The less parking we have to build and the more we can lean on the trolley stop and do it in a way that makes sense is absolutely what we should be doing. So I think those are really important and valuable pieces. Equitable food-oriented development. That's one of the terms we use to describe the work that I'm engaged in with Project New Village. One of the things that the COVID crisis has made clear to me is the importance of food and a local food system, the importance of healthcare and education. no matter what else people are doing, we're still going to have to eat, right? And the more resilient and reliable our food system is, the better off we all are for so many different reasons. And I'm not saying that we have to grow everything we eat in Lemon Grove, because we can't do that. But what if we could grow things here in our city and contract with the school district and, you know, bring locally grown food into the school district to begin to augment, you know, some of the food that they're bringing in. 75% of the kids in our school district are free and reduced lunch. So we know poverty is a very real thing in our community. And we have one of the highest rates of childhood obesity in our schools. And I don't put that on the school district. I think it's a function of a lot of things, right? Like, it's a function of the lack of sidewalks. It's a function of the lack of, you know, well-lit streets and other common areas where people can go and play. It's the fact that we're underparked, especially depending on where you live in the city of Lemon Grove. Those pieces are all connected. And again, economic development is really about how are we making people's lives better, right? Other business development strategies. You know, we're talking about the Chamber of Commerce. We're talking about a business improvement district. How could we use the Sister City program to build relationships with other cities nationally and internationally as a way of branding and promoting Lemon Grove and creating opportunities for exchange, both social, cultural, artistic, and economic and financial. So this list is by no means exhaustive. It's just my efforts to begin to capture the things I'm hearing from folks, the things that I've come across that I think are valuable, and you know, things that I'd like to revisit and, you know, have deeper conversations about with you all as we progress. And I'll kind of scroll back to the top and see if anything else is jumping out or emerging.
Got just, oh, there's a good one right there. There may be an opportunity to both grow and green Lemon Grove simultaneously by using city-owned land, possibly the blighted land under legal review off Broadway. It's my understanding that the city will end up owning this land to install battery storage with street front parking, green space for the electrical grid, and lease that storage to SDG&E. This would bring revenue in the long term and possibly pay for itself before that point. Do you think this could be a feasible project?
From a feasibility standpoint, I don't know, but I love the way it sounds. And I love the idea of, if we're gonna own it, let's lease it back to SDG&E and make some money. I think that's exactly the type of thing we should be thinking about.
A rate that goes up incrementally every 6 months.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, it's somewhat a novelty, and because not everybody's going to be able to take advantage of it. But I'd love to see the opportunity for some actual EV charging stations out here, right? And if that's the type of place where we can do some of that type of work, I'm all for it. And, you know, I'm definitely all for the exploration, right? And just because something sounds like a great idea, and it very well could be, I think those are the types of projects that, like, we should begin to prioritize, right? Like things where there's kind of the synergy of renewable energy, you know, we're creating creative models to generate revenue, and specifically with an entity like SDG&E, I'd love to have a conversation with someone who's been doing some of this work or thinking already. What can we do to get all of Lemon Grove into, you know, community choice energy, and get us all off the grid, and do something completely different in that way, and keep our money in our own pockets. Is there an opportunity to create some type of solar array on other buildings here, and do some of that? I'm all for that type of exploration. I love it.
Great. We've got about 5 minutes left, everybody. If we have any more questions, go ahead and get them in the chat. Just kind of as a reminder, we do these every other week on Thursdays. We've got a couple more coming up that are going to be addressing things like homelessness, space making, or placemaking. So we'll really look forward to see everybody. It's always 6 o'clock, always on a Thursday evening. So the next one will be in 2 weeks from tonight. Mark your calendars. It's really lovely to see. We've had about the same amount of participants. We've seen some new folks, a lot of returning folks for the conversation. And just as a huge supporter of Kamal's, I really would like to see just the word spread, and keep coming back. Seth had another comment real quick. Well, Kamal's kind of pulling up some stuff here, but we should promote EV charging stations along the Broadway corridor, especially near our small businesses. Charging time equals revenue for your nearby businesses. We see that out in near Grossmont College in the mall out there. There are 6 EV charging stations, and people park there and go to Albertsons, Jimmy John's. The stations are full every time I'm there. So and they're only 6, but that's 6 people spending money every time they're there.
Yeah.
It's a great thought.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn this back over to you to wrap us up.
Yeah. So just very quickly, I brought up a document that's kind of a snapshot of one of the things that I came across in referencing Emporia, Kansas, and Paducah, Kentucky. So again, my thought is we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to understand kind of who we are and then who we want to be, and then figure out how to bottle, package, and sell that to the rest of the, the region, community, and the world. What if I can put this in the chat? I may have this in another link. It's from a much larger document that had a number of other cities that were of different sizes. But I was trying to look for cities that, were close to us in size, and with the thought being that strategies that they put in place might be more readily accessible than other cities with, really huge manufacturing bases and populations 5 or 10 times the size of ours. If you'll look, a number of things that have happened in a lot of these places, kind of the first step was the creation of some type of downtown association, a Main Street association. A lot of these cities used like historical designations as ways to revitalize downtown areas. Some of them received funding from the city general fund. Some of it was private sources. In Emporia, they did something to create a code team that helped facilitate development approvals. That sounds a lot like one of the ideas we just heard around kind of a liaison that would help handhold and walk people through the permitting process. And, it was a partnership of city officials, firefighters, other folks. And if you kind of look similarly, I think there's some parallels stylistically between, some of the things that they've done there in terms of building style and the architectural style that I think we want to preserve here. Some of that Spanish revival stuff, the Mission revival stuff, the extent to which we can update and even build new, but keep it consistent with the theme and character that we want to retain as part of our branding and identification as we move forward. The city created a neighborhood revitalization plan. Another unique feature was there was a small college that was in the town as well. We may not have a college within the borders of our town, but not only do we have Grossmont right down the way, but we have, a number of major institutions of higher learning in the region. And we've talked before about, can we bring a satellite to our community? Whoever wants to give us one, let's take it. So I just wanted to share this with folks, just to kind of show what's already been done and, what other tools, tricks can we borrow from them, make our own, and, have the Lemon Grove that we all want and deserve. So maybe what I'll do is I'll get this link to the full document to Brian, and we'll post it up along with the actual recording of this call. So for anybody who wants to take a look at it, they can access it there. Great. And again, to be very clear, this is not my work, somebody else's, but I think one of the wisest things you could do is learn from smart people. So.
And just so you all know, I post the videos and any other documents we have up on the Lemon Grove Politics page, the community sharing, and I also throw this stuff up on Nextdoor too. So you can always reach out to me personally on Facebook. I always check my messages these days to make sure I'm not missing any messages from people who aren't my friends, but I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So feel free to reach out to me through any of those groups. And we can go from there. I really, really, really appreciate everyone being here. I know Kamaal does too. I continue to think that you are the right choice for this city, and I hope that others do too. So Anything you want to close out with? Or we?
No, just I really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you all for joining us. Let's keep working together. Looking forward to continuing the conversation, learning from all of you. Together, that's what it's going to take to get this done. So as soon as those ballots start coming in, let's get those votes cast. I think the 24th, they'll start to go out. So it's starting to heat up, folks. Appreciate you all, and we'll see you very shortly.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks.
Have a good night, folks.